Working on the Javelin today.
We're back at Olds Mob 455 shop, and you can see how the rear axle progress is coming along. And in order to increase and get as much strength out of this rear axle as possible, this is a stressed member now. It has preload bolts that you can turn and help the U-shaped saddles that hold the bearing journals, and then it'll incorporate a brace that'll triangulate this rear end, so when you really hammer on it and it's got slicks, instead of the rear axle tubes bending out, or we're going to have them tabs welded right here as far out as possible, and then this comes into here. But the whole trick comes into, if you're ever going to get into this, is we have a fitment problem. This cover makes contact with the lip on the gas tank. If you weren't watching, and you got this bolt here that helps hold it up, that one's over here, and then you got a 90-degree lip where the two pieces of the gas tank are flanged together, and then they must squeeze it and braze it together. Well, if you had something like this and you hit a bump, and all of a sudden this snags the gas tank and rips the gas tank open, it could make a spark at the same time, you could have a bomb behind your car. So we're going to clearance everything, and this surface needs to be machined and even step notched down, so these will be down further. And then this is like in double shear. That's the plate that holds these in. We got to get that to clearance the gas tank. We're going to try getting the gas tank moved as far back as possible. Whatever we can do to get clearance, we're going to try it. The clearance that we have going, we could put this plate right down to that one, okay? And then we'll know how far down we have to step this, and we can get these lower, but we want to end up getting this plate right on top of that nut. I just measured these with the vernier calipers, and they're like 320. We're going to take this down to 1/4, and then this is 1/4. So that'll be like a 1/2 inch beyond our furthest point, but we're going to mill this whole thing down to this curve, because we don't need all this ultimate 12, and everything counts. I mean, we're really close to that gas tank. Because this and this are two different thicknesses, when you go beyond here, we're going to be putting this down lower, so that it'll be, you know, we could even have a gap, but we'll probably have it the same, so this ends up same height as that. This will have to be notched down. If you're ever thinking about doing this project, these are things that you got to allow for. You can't just slap stuff on. After you get done looking at it, this bar going over here is going to have this shock absorber. Once it's on, it's back here. We might have to put a longer bolt here and get that to clearance. We'll get it right to where, you know, once that's set, you know, we'll get it so it doesn't hit.
All right, we got the cover back from the machine shop. Thank you, machinist Nick. Did a fine job here. Before we sent it out, we took 100 thousandths off these nuts. We had a couple 100 thousandths taken off here, and then we dropped these down to where this rod end is level with the nut. So we're actually going to have more clearance with this rod end being installed in double shear than we had before without this end piece on it. This here was taken down about 350 thousandths. So what we got to do now is dry fit it. We have a shorter load bolt, and then whatever's sticking up after it's torqued to spec past the jam nut is going to have to be filed down to the jam nut, and then we're going to cut a groove in it or see where we're at to have some way of tightening it. So we put a shorter load bolt in it, and we got the cover tightened up. We got our low bolts torqued and our jam nuts tightened. And we're going to take the excess off. But the hex only goes so far into that bolt. So we might leave a little stick out and then machine a little notch in the backside of this bar.
I was wondering how we ended up changing from a longer bolt to a shorter bolt without wrecking the swivel. But you'll see that there's threads on here, which is really nice. And once this goes beyond, then it's into that swiveled in area. And then it can find center on whatever it's putting pressure on. And you can see how far, we're gonna take it down until we still got a little bit of that area for this to go into. All right, you see we took off as much as we can, and the tool still has enough meat to bite into to put 10 pounds of torque into it. That's as much as we felt comfortable taking off and still being able to utilize the tool. We didn't want to be making any slot and using a screwdriver. This will be functioning perfectly with the torque wrench. And then we're going to put the cover back on, then put these down as low as we can, put the nuts on, put this on here, put some kind of paint on here, mark this, and then he's going to make little dimples under here so this clears it. I'm putting some black ink on here. Hopefully this will stay wet long enough. So there was a good transfer of this black paint. And we know it's got to be in the center. It made a blob, but we'll know where to come in with that mill.
If you want to learn how to do proper machining, you're probably going to want to watch somebody else's channel. We got up and down, we got the cross slide, and we've got the carriage. I probably should have had my compound at a 90, but this is just crude. Here we go. See if it fits. Our plater is right down to the jam nut. We got a nice tight fit with the spherical rod end. There's no wasted space here. So we got it fitted up. The shocks are still off. We're going to take the car off the rack and bounce it up and down and see what happens here. So you're hearing our shocks moving around under there, but I'm going to put the camera underneath it and see what kind of footage we can get. Looks like the two bolts that hold the gas tank are to either side of the cover, which is nice. Less than an inch. Not a whole lot of room to spare.
So this is a shot that I want all the young guys to end up seeing. What changes when you jack up your car, and with leaf springs, how much things change just through the travel of the wheel in respect to this wheel well opening. So we got to lift it up as far as it goes, and then you'll see is when the suspension goes down, well, this thing's going to go, it's real close right now because the spring went down. Then as the spring goes up, the shackle's going back, so the wheel is going to go back further to there. This is going to triangulate this and stiffen up this. This tube is only like, I don't know, not even 3 inch. And these braces here will end up strengthening this rear end as much as we can. At the end of the tube, you see it increases in size where the bearing is. So there's a little step here. We're going to have to take the little brackets and grind them where there's not a gap, because we're going to be welding this here under there.
We want to do minimal welding here because the bearings are already in place.
Right.
So we'll just have to do a little and let it cool.
Spot at a time.
As we're fitting this up, I'm going to take a minute to notice here that we've used a low profile kit for this. Not really sure what the difference is. The brackets are welded on now. We got the rods completed, painted, and we knew we were going to have an interference problem with the shock over here. I think I'm going to put a longer bolt in here and then put a spacer in here to step that shock out some. This can take up a little exhaust room in the future, but there's probably still going to be enough there to work with. Looks like the shank is about 5/8. This washer comes right off. It's chiseling away at this, and it's just kind of ripping off. Not really sure how this is held on there. So I'm just going to cut it off here and grind it off. I machined the end of a 4.5-inch bolt off, prepped it for welding, and tapered it. Some of the threads need to come off. I got a magnet on it. I'm going to throw it in just like that and see what happens. That ain't going anywhere anytime soon. I just hope that grade 8 bolt doesn't end up flexing a whole bunch. You got the brace preloaded. Probably should have had that done in the first place when I was taking off the measurements. And we got the shock on. We don't have much clearance, but we have clearance. And I'm going to have to cut a spacer now to keep that shock stepped out. Here's what I came up with for a spacer. It can always be faced off if it's a little too long. Got clearance on that bar. I'm going to paint this hardware up now and then do the final shock install. Just about done with my installation here. I got the differential filled up with gear lube now. This upper fill hole definitely helped. I was able to get the bottle in this area with a tube to fill it. I still got to run the brake lines in this rear end, and I'm going to note that the original brake line came down to a clip here, and if you had original type brake lines, you'd probably need a modification there too. But since I'm running all new brake lines, I'm just going to come across the top. The instructions are saying you can actually shorten up this arm and maybe like put the attaching points here, and you wouldn't have to modify the shock mount. I wanted a full length brace on there though. So I've wiped off the cover with lacquer thinner. I'm going to put some of the Shark Hide metal protectant on that cover to try to keep the aluminum appearance. Here it is after a coat of Shark Hide. Not much difference. Really is a good looking piece. Hopefully when you get the slicks on it and stand on it, we still have enough clearance to that gas tank. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.